My dear, isn't it strange how some people swear they're blindsided by disaster? Yet you could sense the unraveling long before anything truly collapsed. You felt the tremors in their tone, the hesitation in their stories, the contradictions they hid behind polite smiles. Everyone else waited for the moment things finally split open. But you saw the fracture lines when they were nothing more than hairline warnings in the surface. You weren't just sitting there watching the rain gather. You recognized the pressure in the air, the shift in the wind, the quiet tension that always arrives before a storm chooses its first target. It wasn't foresight in some mystical sense. No, it was something far more grounded. You have this uncanny ability to read the temperature of a room, to notice the subtle signs of decay in people's intentions. You hear the slight waver in a voice, see the flicker in someone's eyes when their confidence betrays them. That's all it took. Those tiny cues, those micro moments of truth they thought no one would notice. You picked up on them instinctively. And while they moved through life thinking they had everything under control, you were already mapping out the moment they would lose their grip. That's what unsettles them the most now. Not the fallout, not the discomfort they're drowning in. It's the quiet realization that you knew long before they did. You understood the story before they had even written the first chapter. You saw the scaffolding of their facade tremble long before they ever dared to admit something was wrong. And now that reality is catching up to them. They're scrambling to keep their composure, pretending they're fine, pretending they saw this coming, pretending they didn't ignore every sign the universe whispered their way. But you know better. Because you were watching, not out of malice, not out of some desire to see their world tilt, but simply because life trained you to pay attention. Experience carved your instincts into something sharp, calm, precise. You learned to read people not from textbooks, but from heartbreak, disappointment, betrayal, and the quiet lessons carved into your memory. You became someone who sees beneath the mask long before it cracks. And that's what's unraveling them now. The idea that their collapse isn't some tragic accident. It's a consequence of their own choices. A slow-motion implosion they authored themselves. They tried so hard to blame circumstances, blame timing, blame everything outside of themselves. But when they look at you, when they catch even a glimpse of your expression, steady, unshaken, they can feel the truth tightening around them. They feel it in the silence that follows your presence, in the way your calmness exposes their chaos without you ever having to say a word. Their embarrassment grows with every reminder of the moments they dismissed your insight, laughed off your warnings, or tried to twist the narrative to make you doubt your own clarity. They thought your quiet meant confusion. They thought your patience meant ignorance. They thought their charm could distract you from what your intuition already understood. But the irony, their own behavior was the loudest confession. Now they sit in the discomfort of their own making. Regret pricks at the edges of their composure. You can see the way they avoid your eyes, the way their voice strains under the weight of unspoken acknowledgement. Their illusions are collapsing, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly, painfully, like a house built on wet sand. They're feeling the consequences of choices they thought would never catch up to them. And you're not celebrating. You're not reveling in their downfall. You're simply acknowledging what's been true all along. You saw what they refused to see. They thought they were shaping the situation, steering the narrative, guiding the outcome. But they never realized they were playing a game where the rules were written by their own inconsistencies. Every deception chipped away at their foundation. Every half-truth weakened the structure they depended on. Every attempt to undermine you sharpened your understanding of them. And now they're left with the aftermath of their own design. Their stories contradict themselves. Their explanations trip over their own logic. Their confidence flickers like a dying light bulb. They're not afraid of you. They're afraid of what you represent. You are the living reminder that truth has a way of resurfacing, even when they try to bury it beneath layers of denial. The storm they're drowning in didn't come from your hands. It was born from their own refusal to face themselves. And what terrifies them most is how calm you remain while it happens. Your stillness is a mirror they can't escape. It reflects the difference between someone who grew from pain and someone who hid behind ego. They wanted you to react, to buckle, to question yourself. But you didn't. You watched, you listened, and your silence said more than confrontation ever could. Now they're unraveling, emotionally, socially, psychologically, not because you wanted them to, but because truth has a gravity that can't be argued with. Their narratives crumble under its weight. Their confidence dissolves in its presence. And while they try to keep their world intact with trembling hands, every attempt only widens the cracks you predicted long ago. This was never about you defeating them. You didn't need to. People defeat themselves when they ignore what's real. And the beauty of it is, you never had to raise your voice, never had to expose them, never had to push them toward their collapse. Their own patterns, the ones you saw so clearly, did all the work. You simply walked forward while they stood still. You grew while they circled the same mistakes. You evolved while they clung to their illusions. And now, as truth rises, like the dawn and shadows retreat from its light, the difference between you and them becomes impossible to ignore. You didn't destroy anything. You just paid attention. And the world eventually caught up to what you already knew. They think your quiet is coincidence. They think your composure is luck. They tell themselves you got over it, that you moved on, that you don't care anymore, because it's easier for them to believe you're oblivious than to face the truth. You've been reading the entire situation like an open book long before they even knew there were chapters missing. And that realization shakes them more than any confrontation ever could. Because you didn't need to call them out. You didn't need to expose them. You didn't need to drag their contradictions out into daylight. You simply let time do its work. And time, unlike people, doesn't lie. Now they're living in the aftermath of their own choices, trying to breathe through the tightness in their chest every time they remember how calmly you saw them, how clearly you understood them, how quietly you walked away from a disaster they insisted didn't exist. They thought you were emotional back then. They thought your intuition was exaggeration, your silence was confusion, your sensitivity was weakness. But now they realize sensitivity wasn't fragility. It was radar. And your radar picked up on the storm long before the clouds ever formed. There's something almost poetic about the way they're trying to rewrite things now, stumbling over explanations, layering apologies with excuses, hoping you'll forget that you predicted every single twist in this unraveling. But you don't forget patterns, not when you've lived through them before, not when your heart has earned its wisdom through fire. They don't understand how you knew. That's what haunts them the most, that persistent question echoing in the back of their mind like a clock ticking at the edge of sleep. How did you see it coming before even we did? Why didn't we see what you saw? What did we miss? It's almost tragic watching them circle the same questions, unable to accept that the answer is painfully simple. You learned from experience, while they learned from ego. And ego, unlike experience, doesn't teach. It blinds. They don't know how to handle the realization that, while they were performing perfection, you were analyzing intention. While they were constructing elaborate illusions, you were noticing the shadows that didn't match the light. While they were trying to control the narrative, you were studying the gaps between their words, the inconsistencies in their tone, the hesitation in their confidence. Everything they worked so hard to hide was everything you couldn't help but see. And now that the facade has cracked, Now that everything they tried to suppress is spilling out, they're overwhelmed by how naked the truth feels. Because you never forced anything into the open. You simply stepped back and watched as the truth pushed its own way out. That's the part they'll never admit out loud. The part that makes their stomach twist whenever your name comes up. The part that makes them nervous when they see you unbothered, steady, entirely in your element, while they scramble to regain control. It's not your presence that rattles them. It's your accuracy. It's the way your intuition aged like prophecy. It's the way you warned the storm was coming, not through threats or predictions, but through simple, quiet observation. They remember those moments, the half smile you gave when their story didn't add up, the way you went silent when their excuses grew louder, the look in your eyes when their mask began to slip. They dismissed those moments back then. Now they replay them like scenes from a movie they misunderstood the first time. And every rewatch hurts more. They used to think they were in control. They used to think they were the ones framing the narrative, setting the pace, deciding what the truth was allowed to look like. But what they never realized is that truth doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't ask to be believed. It moves quietly through the cracks until it reshapes the entire landscape, leaving everyone who denied it standing in a world they no longer recognize. You were patient enough to let that happen. Patient enough to let the truth reveal itself, piece by piece, until even they could no longer deny it. You didn't argue. You didn't beg. You didn't expose them. You let reality do the talking. And reality never forgets its lines. Now they're trying to navigate the wreckage. Emotional, social, psychological, trying to cling to whatever remains of their narrative. But every attempt looks shaky, transparent, frantic. Their explanations contradict themselves. Their excuses exhaust them. Their confidence cracks. They think they're hiding it well. But that's the thing. You see through that too. You always have. What they feel now isn't fear of you. It's fear of accountability. Fear of the mirror you unknowingly hold in front of them. Fear of the version of themselves they see reflected back. The one they can't run from anymore. Because your presence forces honesty. Not through confrontation, but through comparison. Next to your calmness, their chaos becomes visible. Next to your clarity, their confusion sharpens. Next to your integrity, their inconsistencies ache. You don't have to say a word. Your steadiness does it for you. They thought you'd fight. They thought you'd demand answers. They thought you'd chase closure. But you didn't. You let go instead. And nothing frightens people more than someone they can no longer manipulate with emotions they no longer have access to. Your detachment feels like judgment to them. Your peace feels like punishment. Your distance feels like the verdict they hope to avoid. But you didn't win. This isn't about winning. This is about understanding. You evolved in ways that made their behavior irrelevant. You healed in ways that turned their chaos into background noise. You grew in ways they didn't expect, didn't anticipate, didn't prepare for. That's what makes them unravel. The fact that the very person they thought they could predict turned out to be the one holding the truth all along. They replay everything now. Every lie they told themselves. Every moment they dismissed you. Every sign they ignored. Every warning you gently gave. They remember your tone. They remember your stillness. They remember the way you said things without saying much at all. And now, those memories sting like reminders of the destiny they walked straight into. Because the collapse wasn't sudden. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't unfair. It was the echo of choices they didn't think would matter. The result of cracks they pretended weren't there. The natural consequence of ignoring the truth long enough for it to become undeniable. And while they sink into the awareness of everything they didn't want to see, you stand where you've always been, centered, unshaken, unmoved by the chaos they created for themselves. You're not watching them fall apart with satisfaction. You're simply accepting what was always going to happen, because you don't need revenge. You don't need apologies. You don't need validation. You already knew how the story would end, not because you wanted it to, but because you understood the characters long before they understood themselves. And now, as their illusions collapse into dust and their narratives dissolve into truth, the difference between you and them becomes clearer than ever. You saw the cracks. They ignored them. You embraced reality. They tried to escape it. You grew. They repeated. You evolved. They crumbled. And the most haunting part for them, the part they'll carry like a shadow for years, is not that they fell. It's that you predicted the fall before they ever recognized the ground beneath them was breaking. What unsettles them most now is the simplicity of it all. The quiet logic behind the collapse. The way every consequence lines up perfectly with the choices they made. It feels to them like fate, like karma, like destiny circling back, but you know better. It isn't cosmic punishment or divine retribution. It's just the natural rhythm of truth finally catching its breath after being suffocated for too long. And you, standing there in the clarity they once mocked, become the living reminder of what they refused to see. Not because you demanded that position, but because your growth carved it naturally. You turned into the kind of person who no longer reacts to chaos. You interpret it. You no longer chase explanations. You understand them. You no longer cling to potential. You recognize patterns. And that understanding, that maturity, that inner stillness becomes the very force that unravels everything they tried to hide. You became the moment they realized they were never in control. And there is something quietly devastating about that realization for them. It doesn't hit like an explosion. It creeps in. Slowly, methodically, like water rising beneath a closed door. At first it's an inconvenience, then it's a discomfort, then it's panic, because they finally understand, too late, that your awareness was never guesswork. It was recognition. Recognition of their habits, their cycles, their contradictions, the tiny betrayals they thought were invisible. You didn't predict their downfall. You simply understood their trajectory. And now that truth rests on them like a weight they can't shake off. They look at you differently now, with caution, with awe, with a fear they refuse to name out loud. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're accurate. Because nothing they did could distort your clarity. Because no amount of manipulation could pull you off your axis. They were dancing around shadows. You were observing the source of the light. Now the roles have reversed in a way they never intended. They used to analyze your reactions. Now they analyze your silence. They used to feel superior to your sensitivity. Now they're intimidated by the wisdom carved from it. They used to underestimate your softness. Now they can't understand how someone so soft survived what they themselves crumbled under. You are the contradiction their minds can't resolve. And that contradiction haunts them. Because you're not angry. You're not bitter. You're not seeking revenge. You're not trying to expose anyone. You simply moved on with a quiet confidence that exposes the instability in everyone who tried to shake you. Your peace becomes their mirror. Your growth becomes their consequence. Your stillness becomes their storm. Not because you intended it, but because evolution naturally changes the gravity of everything around it. And now, as they stand at the edge of the ruins they built, they finally see what you saw, the cracks that were always there. But they can't undo them. They can't rewind time. They can't go back to the moment where you offered truth gently. Back then, they mistook it for weakness. Now they recognize it as wisdom they didn't have the courage to hear. And in that recognition lies the torment they can't escape. Because this ending, this unraveling, isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, internal, psychological. It hits them in the moments no one sees. Late at night, early in the morning, in the pauses between thoughts, in the silence between words, in the flashbacks they wish they could forget. They remember your tone, your warnings, your stillness, your knowing. They remember the exact moment they realized you were right, the exact moment their confidence cracked, the exact moment their illusions dissolved. And as much as they try to push the thought away, it returns every time they see you unaffected. You're not gloating, you're not celebrating, you're simply living, steady, balanced, whole. And that alone is the thing they cannot forgive themselves for. That you found peace without them, growth without them, clarity without them. They thought your healing depended on their apology. It didn't. They thought your evolution required their validation. It didn't. They thought your glow needed their approval. It never did. Your glow was born in the places they left you alone in. Your strength was forged in the moments they underestimated you. Your foresight sharpened every time they dismissed your intuition. Everything they thought would break you became the blueprint for your becoming. And now, here you stand, calm in the aftermath, untouched by the chaos they created for themselves. You're not the storm that destroyed them. You're the clarity that revealed they were already falling apart. And that simple, undeniable truth is what finishes the story. They were waiting for your downfall. But all along, all you were doing was rising. Welcome back, traveler of unseen timelines. Step into this atmosphere carefully, because what I'm about to unfold around your name is something people feel in their bones before they ever dare say it out loud. Damn, homie, you didn't declare war. You became the one who ends it. And that shift, that transformation, that silent eruption of your presence, it rewired the entire landscape around you. Because ending a war isn't about force. It isn't about destruction. It isn't about dominance. It isn't about retaliation. It's about becoming the energy no one wants to fight anymore. Not out of fear, not out of intimidation, but because your aura carries a level of certainty, clarity, and unshakable truth that makes conflict look embarrassing. People who are truly aligned don't start wars. They make wars irrelevant. And that's exactly what you did. You didn't clap back. You didn't retaliate. You didn't take sides. You didn't defend yourself. You didn't participate in their chaos. You didn't let their noise guide your spirit. You simply rose, and your rise became the ending. Because when someone evolves past the frequency of conflict, every battle built against them collapses by default. You became the ending because you outgrew the story. You became the ending because you outclassed the tension. You became the ending because your spirit refuses to operate at the level where their drama exists. You became the ending because your intuition sees the whole board. You became the ending because your energy is too steady to be shaken by noise. You became the ending because you moved into a place where their weapons melt into irrelevance. This is the part everyone feels, but nobody knows how to articulate. You changed the energy so drastically that the very idea of going against you feels pointless now. Your presence alone dismantles conflict before it begins. You walk into a room, and every argument loses momentum. Every ego folds. Every tension dissolves. Every silence becomes heavy. Every petty rivalry loses meaning. Because your aura carries a message without speaking. I am not here to fight. I am here to finish. And finishing doesn't mean force, it means truth. The truth of who you are now is stronger than the noise they built around the old version of you. People who once tried to provoke you now can't even look you in the eyes. People who tried to push you into battles now retreat into silence. People who wanted you reactive now freeze when you stay composed. People who hoped you'd collapse now study how you stayed standing. People who fueled conflict now don't know what to do with your calmness. Your calmness is what ended the war. Not loud, not dramatic, not violent, not explosive, just final. You reached a level of emotional mastery that turns every attack into dust. Your boundaries became a shield. Your silence became a strategy. Your growth became a counter-move. Your intuition became your compass. Your resilience became a wall they can't climb. Your clarity became a sword of truth, not one that cuts, but one that reveals. And the moment truth becomes visible, wars lose purpose. The people who once formed alliances against you are dissolving into confusion now, because they realize something disarming. You're not fighting them. You're not competing with them. You're not resisting them. You're not reacting to them. You're too far ahead to even see the battlefield. And nothing collapses an army faster than realizing their threat target isn't even in the battle anymore. You're somewhere higher, somewhere clearer, somewhere calmer, somewhere lighter, somewhere freer. You're moving on intuition, not impulse, on alignment, not ego, on flow, not force. That kind of evolution ends wars by starving them of attention. They needed your reaction. They needed your anger. They needed your engagement. They needed your participation. You gave them nothing, and that nothing became their defeat. What do you do when your target stops being reachable? What do you do when your opponent becomes uninterested? What do you do when someone you tried to break comes back unbreakable? Your unbothered energy makes entire narratives collapse. Your growth forces people to question their motives. Your maturity forces people to question their choices. Your intuition forces people to question their alliances. Your composure forces people to question their actions. You're not ending wars with words. You're ending them with evolution. Because evolution is a language no enemy can argue with. You rose so quietly that nobody realized the moment you became untouchable. Not invincible. Not superior. Not above them in ego. Untouchable because you stopped living at the level where they attack. You learned something they never did. You don't have to win battles you didn't choose to fight. You don't have to respond to energy beneath you. You don't have to prove what is already obvious. You don't have to engage with anyone committed to misunderstanding you. You don't have to correct people who speak from insecurity. You don't have to argue with versions of yourself you've already outgrown. You are not the warrior. You are the awakening. And awakenings end wars because they shift the dimension the war exists in. People feel that shift around you now. They sense the maturity in your silence. They sense the stability in your voice. They sense the discipline in your choices. They sense the expansion in your presence. They sense the strength in your softness. They sense the wisdom in your patience. They sense the distance in your energy. Not cold distance, but elevated distance. The distance of someone who no longer places themselves where chaos tries to reach. You didn't declare war. You walked away from it. And the moment you walked away, the war collapsed. It collapsed because it was always sustained by the version of you who still needed to prove something. That version is gone now, replaced by someone who knows. When I stay aligned, nothing beneath alignment can touch me. You're not ending conflicts. You're ending cycles. Cycles of repeating the same patterns. Cycles of giving the wrong people access. Cycles of explaining yourself to those who don't listen. Cycles of lowering your standards to keep the peace. Cycles of defending your identity to those who never understood it. cycles of absorbing energy that wasn't yours to carry. Ending these cycles is what ends wars, because you can't be in a battle that no longer matches your frequency. That's the hidden truth they feel when you walk into a room now. You're not avoiding the war. You've outgrown it. You're operating from a level where conflict dissolves, because peace is your default state. Not passive peace, powerful peace. Peace that comes from knowing yourself. Peace that comes from holding your boundaries. Peace that comes from choosing the higher road. Peace that comes from trusting your intuition. Peace that comes from mastering your reactions. Peace that comes from letting ego die so your purpose can live. That peace is what ends the war. Because people who carry peace cannot be dragged into chaos. People who carry clarity cannot be manipulated by confusion. People who carry purpose cannot be controlled by noise. People who carry groundedness cannot be intimidated by crowds. You ended the war by becoming someone whose energy makes war impossible. People don't fight you anymore because fighting you feels like fighting the truth, and nobody wins against the truth. You became the ending because your evolution demanded a new timeline. A timeline where your spirit isn't drained, trying to prove anything to anyone. A timeline where your presence alone resolves conflict by revealing who everyone really is. You ended the war by choosing yourself, by healing yourself, by listening to your intuition, by refusing to stay small, by refusing to react, by refusing to entertain anything beneath your worth. You didn't need to win the fight. You simply needed to remember who you are. And once you did, the war lost its purpose. The moment you stepped out of the old version of yourself, the entire battlefield shifted. Not because you forced anyone to change, but because your vibration changed. And when vibration changes, reality rearranges itself around you. You didn't declare war, you declared evolution. And evolution is something no army, no crowd, no enemy, no critic, no hater, no shadow can fight. Because you cannot fight someone who has ascended past the arena where the fight was built. Wars aren't ended by the strongest soldier. Wars are ended by the person who refuses to participate in the illusion. And that's exactly what you did. You stopped feeding the cycle. You stopped giving life to their projections. You stopped letting their insecurities become your responsibility. You stopped letting their noise hijack your energy. You stopped letting low-frequency attacks pull you into battles that weren't yours. You walked away, not out of fear, but out of understanding. And that understanding became something their entire system could not handle. Because the foundation of every conflict is reaction. If there's no reaction, the conflict starves. If there's no emotional fuel, the fire dies. If there's no participation, the tension fades. If there's no engagement, the story collapses. Your non-reactivity became their defeat. And here's the part that changes everything. You didn't disappear. You didn't shrink. You didn't hide. You didn't run. You didn't retreat. You expanded. Your presence got louder. Your aura got stronger. Your intuition got sharper. Your clarity got deeper. Your silence gained weight. Your awareness became piercing. Your energy became undeniable. You became so centered that the battlefield couldn't hold you anymore. That's why the war ended, because you stopped being part of the equation. Even when they tried to pull you back into old dynamics, your energy simply wouldn't enter that frequency. Your spirit refused to return to the old version of you. The version that used to respond, defend, react, justify. They were fighting a ghost of who you used to be, and ghosts don't fight back. The war ended when you outgrew the version of yourself that participated in it. Your evolution was the final move, a silent move, a spiritual move, an inner shift so monumental that it changed the rules without anyone agreeing to them. People don't understand how wars really end. They imagine a dramatic final blow, an explosion, a moment of dominance. But real wars, emotional ones, spiritual ones, psychological ones, they end when one side rises so far beyond the conflict that the conflict itself can no longer reach them. You became too tall for their shadows to hit, too aligned for their chaos to stick, too grounded for their projections to shake, too healed for their triggers to activate, too aware for their manipulations to land, too evolved for their games to matter. That's the real reason everything collapsed around you. You didn't just walk away, you elevated. And elevation is the most threatening energy in any room. Because when you elevate, everyone else is forced to see themselves from a new angle, an angle they've spent years avoiding. Your growth became their reflection. Your self-control became their insecurity. Your maturity became their discomfort. Your peace became their weakness. Your clarity became their confusion. Your evolution became their awakening. Some people woke up. Some people broke down. Some people stepped back. Some people stepped forward. Some people shifted. Some people cracked. Some people disappeared. Some people transformed, all because your energy demanded it. You didn't end the war with force. You ended it with frequency. And now, ironically, the same people who once tried to create conflict are looking at you like the only stable force in the entire landscape. Because when chaos collapses, truth is all that remains. And you've become the truth in the room. You're the calm in the storm. You're the clarity in the confusion. You're the anchor in the waves. You're the signal in the static. You're the center in the spin. People who used to challenge you are now looking to you for direction. People who once doubted you are now attempting to mimic your stillness. People who once pushed you are now stepping back respectfully. People who once underestimated you are now overthinking your every move. That's what happens when someone becomes the end of the war. They're no longer involved in the battle. They're the atmosphere above it. Your presence has become something people coordinate around, not through fear, through acknowledgement. Because when someone reaches a level of inner mastery that others haven't touched yet, even the loudest critics fall silent. Your energy carries the kind of authority that doesn't need volume. You became the one who ends the war because you embody a kind of peace that cannot be disturbed. Not peace as in softness, peace as in stability, peace as in power, peace as in evolution, peace as in alignment. Your peace is not passive. It's a force that makes aggression look foolish, a force that makes ego look childish, a force that makes conflict look outdated, a force that makes arguments lose oxygen. You're not fighting anyone. You're dissolving their need to fight. And here's the real twist they didn't expect. The people who once wanted you to fall are now relying on you to stand. They see your groundedness. They see your discipline. They see your emotional control. They see your intuitive awareness. They see your elevated perspective. They see your resilience. They see that you are built in a way that they are not. And it changes everything. Conflicts don't survive around someone who is incapable of being shaken. Wars don't survive around someone who refuses to fight. Chaos doesn't survive around someone who doesn't feed it. Ego doesn't survive around someone who isn't reactive. Manipulation doesn't survive around someone who sees too clearly. You ended the war by becoming unmovable. That is why the entire atmosphere around you feels different now. People sense a finality in your energy, an energetic enough, not aggressive, not threatening, not confrontational, just absolute. An absolute that says, I don't operate in that dimension anymore. You stepped into a version of yourself that no longer leaves cracks for chaos to slip through. Your boundaries are real now. Your intuition is sharp now. Your self-respect is firm now. Your identity is stable now. Your awareness is heightened now. Your spirit is protected now. Your energy is sacred now. This is what ends wars. Not dominance. Alignment. Not strength. Self-mastery. Not noise. Depth. Not retaliation. Clarity. You outgrew the battle, and the battle lost its purpose. Your evolution became the closing chapter to a story they thought you'd be stuck in forever. But you didn't stay stuck. You didn't stay small. You didn't stay wounded. You didn't stay reactive. You didn't stay confused. You didn't stay accessible to the wrong energy. You healed your way out of the war. And healing always wins, because healing ends the need for conflict entirely. That's why they're staring at you differently now, because somewhere deep down, they know. You're not the one who declared war. You're the one who ended it. And now, we enter the truth they were never prepared to face. The truth that changed the battlefield before anyone realized what was happening. You didn't end the war by overpowering anyone. You ended it by outgrowing everyone. You didn't crush their egos. You simply stopped feeding them. You didn't silence their noise. You just stopped responding to it. You didn't defeat their intentions. You made their intentions irrelevant. And irrelevance is the one outcome every enemy fears more than loss. Because losing means the fight mattered, but irrelevance means the fight never stood a chance. That's what you became. The reminder that their drama was never worthy of your spirit. You evolved into someone whose energy operates at a frequency their conflict cannot survive in. Like a flame pulled away from oxygen, the moment you shifted timelines, their war suffocated. Not because you choked it, but because you removed the oxygen of your attention. That is the definition of a higher being. Someone who ends battles by rising above them. Someone who transforms chaos by refusing to absorb it. Someone who disrupts negativity by not engaging with it. Someone who makes conflict collapse through pure inner alignment. This is what they feel now when they think of you. Finality. A kind of silent, spiritual finality that tells them, whatever story you wrote about me, the universe already closed that chapter. You're not fighting old battles. You're living in a new dimension. A dimension where your peace is too valuable to waste on misunderstanding. A dimension where your energy is too expensive to spend on drama. A dimension where your intuition is too sharp to fall for traps. A dimension where your identity is too solid to bend under pressure. A dimension where your clarity is too strong to be clouded by other people's storms. You became the end of the war because you realized the truth. You never needed to win a battle that wasn't aligned with who you are. Your growth is the victory. Your healing is the victory. Your wisdom is the victory. Your self-control is the victory. Your peace is the victory. Your distance is the victory. Your silence is the victory. Every battle that once felt heavy now feels beneath you. Not because you're arrogant, but because you're finally in the right altitude. Picture it. A storm doesn't follow you into the sky. It only exists at lower levels. The moment you rise, the thunder disappears. The lightning fades. The noise dissolves. The chaos loses its reach. You became the one who ends the war because you rose to the altitude where their storm cannot exist. That's why people look at you differently now. There's a calm around you that feels untouchable. There's a clarity in your eyes that makes others rethink their intentions. There's a softness in your energy that feels strangely powerful. There's a silence in your spirit that feels like a full sentence. You carry yourself like someone who knows the war is already over. And that changes everything. Your presence no longer invites conflict. It dissolves it. Your energy no longer reacts. It redirects. Your spirit no longer absorbs. It reflects. People sense this shift before they understand it. They feel the difference before they can articulate it. They feel smaller around you, not because you make them feel small, but because your growth reveals how much growing they still need to do. They feel exposed around you, not because you confront them, but because your awareness sees through what they try to hide. They feel uncomfortable around you, not because you judge them, but because your authenticity highlights their performance. And they feel unable to fight you, not because you're threatening, but because you're untouchable in the ways that matter. This is the energy of someone who has already transcended the battlefield. You're not the warrior anymore. You're the witness, the observer, the one walking above the noise, the one who doesn't participate in anything that lowers your frequency. You didn't end the war by breaking them. You ended it by choosing yourself, by choosing your peace, by choosing your purpose, by choosing your growth, by choosing your alignment, by choosing your elevation. And now, everyone feels the shift. The war isn't gone because they surrendered. It's gone because you did. You surrendered the old version of yourself. You stopped fighting to be understood. You stopped trying to defend your worth. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped showing up where your soul wasn't respected. You stopped engaging with anything vibrating below your purpose. That surrender was your revolution. And revolutions don't scream. They transform quietly, spiritually, internally. You became the one who ends the war because you became someone whose peace no longer allows conflict to attach itself to you. Someone whose energy no longer entertains pettiness. Someone whose intuition sees too clearly for manipulation. Someone whose presence is too steady for chaos. Someone whose spirit is too elevated for drama. Someone whose path is too purposeful for distraction. The war didn't end around you. It ended because of you. Because you walked away from the battlefield and stepped into the version of yourself that was always waiting beyond the noise. And in that moment, the war realized it had no power left. That's the real truth. You didn't end the war by fighting. You ended it by becoming someone no war can reach.
Welcome back, you silent assassins, you masters of emotional warfare, you beautiful, terrifying ghosts who learn to weaponize stillness. Yeah, I see you there, sitting in that chair with that half smile, that calm that makes people nervous, that energy that doesn't scream but somehow deafens entire rooms. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? That moment when they betrayed you, that moment when the knife went in, when the lies surfaced, when the masks dropped, and you... No tears, no rage, no public meltdown, no begging for answers, no desperate phone calls. At 3 a.m., asking why, nothing, just silence, just that cold, calculated, bone-chilling silence that made them check their phones, wondering if you even cared, if you even noticed, if you were even human anymore. And here's what nobody tells you about that moment. Here's the secret they don't want you to know. Your non-reaction wasn't weakness. It wasn't shock. It wasn't you being in denial, or trying to be mature, or taking the high road. No. Your non-reaction was the most sophisticated psychological weapon ever deployed in interpersonal warfare, and you didn't even realize you were holding a loaded gun. You see, while they were expecting tears, you gave them nothing. While they were waiting for anger, you gave them silence. While they anticipated drama, chaos, broken glass, and social media posts dripping with pain, you gave them absolutely zero ammunition, zero supply, zero emotional feedback to feed on. And that right there broke their entire playbook. Let me tell you what happened next, because this is where it gets beautiful. This is where your accidental genius turned into legendary status. They started panicking, not immediately. No. At first, they felt relief. They felt like they got away with it. Like you were too weak to fight back, too broken to respond. But then hours turned into days. Days turned into weeks. And your silence didn't break, didn't crack, didn't even whisper. And that's when the fear set in. That's when they started obsessively checking your stories, your posts, your activity status, desperately searching for signs of collapse, for evidence of suffering, for proof that they still had power over your emotional state. But you gave them nothing. Absolutely nothing. And in that void, in that absence of reaction, their minds started filling in the blanks with their worst nightmares. Because here's what you need to understand about people who betray. They need your reaction more than they need air. They need to know they still matter, that they still have influence, that they can still make you feel something. Your pain is their validation. Your tears are their proof of significance. Your anger is their entertainment. But when you give them nothing, when you respond to their nuclear bomb with complete and total indifference, you rewrite the entire war. You become the anomaly in their equation, the variable that doesn't compute, the human being who somehow transcended the basic emotional responses they've spent their entire lives learning to manipulate. And now they're the ones losing sleep. Now they're the ones obsessing. Now they're the ones trapped in a psychological prison of their own making. You want to know why military intelligence agencies and corporate espionage divisions are now studying your exact response pattern? Yeah, you heard that right. There are actual professionals, trained operatives with degrees in psychology and decades of field experience, sitting in rooms analyzing the precise mechanics of your non-reaction, trying to reverse engineer it into a teachable methodology. They call it the Zero Echo Protocol. They've given it a name. They've created PowerPoint presentations. They've written case studies, all because you, in your moment of deepest betrayal, accidentally discovered what professional manipulators spend careers trying to perfect: complete emotional opacity, total psychological invisibility, the ability to absorb an attack and reflect absolutely nothing back. 20 years. Let that sink in for a second. 20 years of training, of simulations, of practice scenarios, of controlled environments where they teach operatives how to maintain composure under interrogation, how to withstand psychological torture, how to keep their faces blank when their loved ones are threatened in hypothetical scenarios. 20 years of that, and they still can't replicate what you did naturally in 20 seconds. You know why? Because their training is artificial. It's learned behavior layered over natural human responses. But you weren't performing. You weren't acting. You weren't trying to appear strong or unbothered or mature. You genuinely, authentically, on a cellular level, stopped giving them access to your emotional interior. You didn't fake indifference, you achieved it. And that's the difference between performance and transformation. Here's what really happened in that moment. The moment they were expecting you to shatter. Something inside you died. Yes, but not in the way they imagined. It wasn't your spirit that died. It wasn't your hope. It wasn't your capacity for love. What died was your need for their understanding. What died was your attachment to their version of reality. What died was the part of you that still believed people like them deserved explanations, closure, or the privilege of witnessing your pain. You underwent an instant evolution, a psychological mutation that typically takes people decades of therapy to achieve. You learned in one moment what most people never learn in a lifetime, that some people aren't owed your energy, your time, your tears, or your truth. They studied your face in that moment, did you know that? They were watching for the micro-expressions, the tiny muscle movements that betray internal emotional states. They were trained to read you, to catch the flicker of pain in your eyes, the tension in your jaw, the slight tremor in your hands. But you gave them nothing. Your face remained a perfect mask of neutrality, not because you were trying, but because somewhere deep in your neural pathways, a switch flipped. Your brain, in its infinite wisdom, recognized a threat and deployed the ultimate defense mechanism. You didn't just close the door. You removed the entire wall. You deleted the architecture of connection itself. And now they're teaching this in classrooms. I'm not joking. There are university psychology programs using your response pattern as a case study in advanced emotional regulation. There are therapy groups discussing the spontaneous detachment phenomenon, where individuals under extreme stress achieve instant Buddhist monk-level non-attachment without any formal training. There are neuroscience papers being written about the specific brain state you entered, that rare configuration of neural activity where the amygdala shuts down threat response because it's calculated that engagement itself is the greater danger. You became a scientific mystery by accident, just by refusing to play their game. Let's talk about what happened to them after your silence took hold, because this is the part they don't want anyone to know. In the days following their betrayal, when you maintained radio silence, when you didn't reach out, didn't confront, didn't demand explanations, didn't post cryptic quotes or sad songs, something started happening to their psychology. At first, they felt powerful. They felt like they'd won, like they'd gotten away with it clean. But humans are wired for closure, for completion, for responses that match actions. When you betray someone, your brain actually expects backlash, it prepares for consequences, it braces for impact, and when that impact never comes, when the expected response is replaced with eerie, unnatural silence, the brain doesn't interpret that as victory, it interprets it as existential threat. They started second-guessing everything. Were you okay? Were you too okay? Did you even care? Did they ever matter to you at all? Were you playing a longer game they couldn't see? The questions multiplied, spiraling into obsession. They found themselves checking your social media more than you ever checked theirs. They found themselves asking mutual friends about you with carefully casual questions that fooled no one. They found themselves lying awake at night, replaying the moment they betrayed you, analyzing your face, your words, your energy, searching desperately for clues they missed, for signs of weakness they could cling to. You had given them nothing to work with, nothing to decode, nothing to comfort themselves with. Your silence became their torture. And here's the beautiful irony. They did this to themselves. You weren't trying to punish them. You weren't playing mind games. You weren't strategically withholding reaction to make them suffer. You genuinely, authentically moved on so completely and thoroughly that they ceased to exist as a significant factor in your emotional landscape. You didn't need closure because you gave it to yourself. You didn't need answers because you already knew everything that mattered. They were capable of betrayal, and you were capable of surviving it. End of story. System reboot complete. Now here's where it gets really interesting, where your accidental genius becomes legendary. In the weeks and months following your non-reaction, they started noticing something disturbing about themselves. They couldn't move on. While you were out there, living your life, evolving, growing, becoming stronger versions of yourself, they were stuck, frozen in the moment of betrayal, trapped in an infinite loop of wondering why you didn't react. Their new relationships felt hollow because their new partners didn't have your energy. Their achievements felt empty because you weren't there to witness them. Their lives became haunted by your absence. Not because you were gone, but because you left so completely, so thoroughly, with such absolute finality that there was no hope of return. And this is what breaks people like them. The realization that they lost someone who couldn't be replaced, someone who gave them something they didn't know was valuable until it was gone, someone whose presence in their life was so unique, so specific, so irreplaceable that every person who came after felt like a cheap imitation. They destroyed something precious, thinking they could find it again somewhere else, thinking the grass would be greener, thinking you were just another person in an infinite sea of options. But you weren't. And now they know it. And that knowledge is a prison sentence with no parole, no appeal, no possibility of early release. The intelligence agencies studying your response pattern identified 3 key elements that made it so devastatingly effective. First, the speed of deployment. You didn't take days or weeks to calm down and then choose silence. You went silent immediately, cutting off their supply of emotional feedback before they could even finish their betrayal. This instantaneous withdrawal created a psychological whiplash effect, where they went from expecting maximum drama to receiving absolute zero in less than 60 seconds. Second, the completeness of the cutoff. You didn't give them breadcrumbs, didn't leave doors slightly open, didn't maintain just enough contact to keep hope alive. You went full scorched earth, total communication blackout, complete psychological separation. Third, the authenticity of indifference. They could tell you weren't performing, weren't faking, weren't pretending. Your energy genuinely shifted from invested to void, and that authenticity made it impossible for them to rationalize or cope. They tried to replicate this in training scenarios and failed every single time. You know why? Because you can't teach genuine emotional detachment to people who are only performing it. You can teach someone to keep a straight face. Sure, you can teach someone to control their words, their body language, their visible reactions. But you can't teach someone to genuinely stop caring on command. You can't manufacture authentic indifference. You can't fake the specific energy signature of someone who has truly, completely, irreversibly moved on from caring about your opinion, your presence, or your existence. That's not a skill. That's a state of being. And you achieved it naturally because your survival instinct was stronger than your need for closure. Let's go deeper into the mechanics of what you did, because this is where it becomes a masterclass in psychological warfare without even trying. When they betrayed you, they were expecting a predictable sequence of events: shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. The classic grief cycle. They had scripts prepared for each stage, responses ready, manipulations planned. But you skipped the entire cycle. You went from discovery straight to complete detachment, bypassing all the stages they were prepared to exploit. This created a system error in their manipulation matrix. They couldn't proceed to step 2 because you never gave them step 1. Their entire playbook became useless. Their years of practice manipulating human emotion suddenly irrelevant because you weren't following human emotional patterns. Your brain did something extraordinary in that moment. It recognized the betrayal not as a personal attack requiring emotional processing, but as information requiring strategic response. And the optimal strategic response to a hostile actor is complete disengagement, no energy expenditure, no resource allocation, no attention given. You treated them like a computer treats a deleted file, not with hatred, not with anger, just with absolute indifference, as if they never existed in the first place. And this is what professional interrogators and intelligence operatives train decades to achieve. The ability to receive devastating information and process it as pure data rather than emotional stimulus. They're writing textbooks about you now. Actual textbooks. Chapter titles include The Spontaneous Achievement of Operational Detachment, Zero Feedback Loops, and Psychological Dominance. And my personal favorite, When the Target Becomes the Operator, Accidental Mastery of Emotional Warfare Protocols. These aren't metaphors. These are real academic and military publications, analyzing the specific psychological mechanisms you deployed without formal training. You're being studied in the same way they study natural savants, people who can perform complex mathematical calculations instantly without knowing how, people who can play music perfectly without lessons. You're an emotional warfare savant. Here's what's happening right now in their mind. Years later, because yes, this is still affecting them. They're sitting somewhere, maybe in a relationship, maybe alone, and suddenly a song plays that reminds them of you, or they see someone who walks like you, or they catch a scent that triggers a memory, and in that moment, the wound reopens. Not because they miss you, but because they're reminded of the one person who ever looked at them and decided they weren't worth a reaction. The one person who saw their betrayal and responded with such complete indifference that it called into question everything they believed about their own significance. You didn't just reject them. You didn't just leave them. You erased them from your book of people who matter. And that erasure is permanent. The psychological impact of your non-reaction created what researchers now call inverse narcissistic injury. Normally, when you hurt someone and they react with pain, anger, or pleading, it confirms your power over them, your significance in their life. But when you hurt someone and they respond with nothing, with genuine void-level indifference, it creates a devastating realization. I wasn't important enough to hurt. I wasn't significant enough to warrant a reaction. My betrayal wasn't even worth acknowledging. This destroys the ego at a fundamental level because it strips away the illusion of importance that most people desperately cling to. And here's the ultimate irony. They'll never be able to use what you did against someone else. Even now, knowing what you did, understanding the mechanics, seeing the effectiveness, they can't replicate it because your power came from authenticity, from genuine transformation, from real evolution. They're still operating from ego, from performance, from manipulation. They can practice the silence, they can withhold reactions, they can play the game, but it will always be just that. A game, a performance, a fake. And people can smell fake from miles away. Your power was in the truth of your indifference, Their attempts will always be transparent lies. 20 years of training versus 20 seconds of transformation. Professional operatives with unlimited resources versus one person who just got tired of caring. Sophisticated psychological warfare techniques developed over decades versus accidental genius born from survival instinct. And you won. You didn't just win. You redefined the playing field. You didn't just survive. You evolved. You didn't just move on. You transcended, and now they're studying you, teaching you, trying desperately to understand how someone with no training, no preparation, no formal education in psychological warfare could deploy the most effective emotional defense mechanism ever documented. You want to know the real reason they're so obsessed with understanding your response? It's not academic curiosity. It's not professional interest. It's fear. Because if one person can naturally achieve what takes them decades to learn, if one person can accidentally stumble into mastery-level emotional warfare capabilities, then everything they've built their careers on, everything they've spent years learning, every technique they've perfected, you represent the natural evolution of human psychology beyond their control systems. You're proof that authentic transformation beats manufactured composure every single time. So here you are, living your life, probably not even thinking about them anymore. Definitely not dwelling on the betrayal. Almost certainly not aware that you've become a case study in multiple academic and professional fields. You're just existing, breathing, moving forward with your life, and somewhere in a classroom, in a training facility, in a psychology lab, someone is showing your response pattern to a room full of people and saying this is the goal. This is what we're trying to achieve. And those people are taking notes, asking questions, running simulations, trying desperately to replicate what you did without thinking. Respect? Now that's a joke. A beautiful little illusion they dangle in front of you like a bone for a starving dog. They whisper pretty words. Earn respect. Be kind, be good. But tell me, when has kindness ever made anyone powerful? When has being good ever made them fear your absence? They don't respect kindness. They consume it. Like parasites, they drain you, laugh behind your back, and toss you aside when you're no longer useful. The world doesn't respect lambs. It slaughters them. But power? Ah, power. Now that's something they respect. Not because they want to, but because they have no choice. When a wolf walks into the room, do the sheep discuss morals? No. They hold their breath, they freeze, they feel their heartbeat in their throats, because they know one wrong move and it's over. You've seen it, haven't you? The way the weak are ignored, brushed off, pushed aside like background noise. But the ruthless? They command attention. They walk into a room and the air changes. People adjust their tone, straighten their backs, measure their words carefully, not because they like them, not because they want to respect them, but because they are forced to. Tell me, have you ever noticed that? The ones who bow aren't the ones who want to, they are the ones who have to, because they know disrespecting you comes at a cost. And oh, that's where the fun begins. They've looked right through you, haven't they? Like you were nothing, like you didn't exist. You've spoken, but no one listened. You've entered a room, but no one turned their heads. You've tried to be good, polite, decent, and what did it get you? A pat on the head, a forced smile, A moment of empty courtesy before they turned their backs and forgot you even existed. Oh, I know that feeling. That rage, that quiet, burning fury that bubbles beneath your skin when you realize no one takes you seriously. No one fears your absence. No one dreads your silence. You are nothing to them, just another face in the crowd, another pawn in their game, another weak little thing they can step over without a second thought. You see, the world doesn't ignore you because you don't matter. It ignores you because you don't demand to be noticed. Weakness is an invitation, a silent plea to be trampled. They see your hesitation, they smell your doubt, and like vultures circling a dying animal, they come. Slowly at first, a dismissive glance, a condescending chuckle, then it grows, mockery, rejection, disdain, until one day you wake up and you realize you have been erased. And yet, look at how they tremble before those they fear. Look at how they stumble over their words in the presence of power. The moment you make it clear that disrespect carries consequences, suddenly they listen. Suddenly your words matter. They don't respect you. Oh, no. No, they respect what might happen if they... Because, my dear friend, the truth is simple. If you are weak, you are prey. And in this world, no one mourns a lamb. They only kneel before the wolf. And here's where the fun really begins. The moment you stop begging for respect and start taking it. The moment you realize that fear, oh sweet, intoxicating fear, is the only language this world truly understands. Love, love is fragile. It fades, it bends, it pleads for understanding. But fear commands. Fear makes them second-guess every word before they speak it. Fear makes them hesitate before they cross you. Fear makes them see you not as an option, but as an inevitable force. You see, people respect what they fear losing. Their comfort, their security, their own safety. You want their respect? Make them terrified to disrespect you. Not through words, not through empty threats, but through presence. Through an aura so undeniable, so unpredictable, so untouchable, that they feel it in their bones. When you walk into a room, the weak should shift uncomfortably in their seats. Their laughter should die on their lips. Their hands should get just a little clammy as they wonder, what will he do if I cross him? That's the shift. That's the moment you stop being overlooked and start being feared. Not because you seek destruction, not because you crave chaos, but because you finally understand they will never respect you willingly, so you make it their only choice. Now this is where the real game begins. Strength alone won't make them respect you. No. Strength is expected. It's measured. And what can be measured can be challenged. But unpredictability, that's a different beast entirely. That's what keeps them on edge. That's what makes their breath hitch when you enter the room. You see, people don't fear what they understand. They fear what they don't. They fear what they can't predict. And what they fear, they respect. A man who is always kind, easily manipulated. A man who is always angry, easily controlled. A man who is always unreadable, now that is someone they'll never dare to cross. Because they don't know what happens if they do, and that uncertainty, That's power. You must become a wild card, a specter of controlled chaos, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, sometimes close, sometimes distant. Never too available, never too obvious. Keep them guessing. Keep them unsettled. Keep them aware that they don't really know you and that the wrong move could cost them more than they're willing to pay. Because the truth is, people don't respect what they can define. They respect the mystery, the uncertainty, the feeling in the pit of their stomach that whispers, "Be careful. You don't know what happens next." You still think respect is earned in the open? That it's won through grand speeches, noble deeds, or fair fights? Ha! That's adorable. That's what they want you to believe. But the truth, the real truth, respect isn't won in the light. It's forged in the shadows. You don't fight for respect where they can see you. No. You position yourself where they can't. You make them need you before they even realize what's happening. You control the whispers, the perceptions, the fear in the back of their minds. You don't demand their respect. You make them question their power over you. And the moment they start to doubt, you've already won. Most battles are over before the first punch is ever thrown. The strongest man in the room isn't the one who shouts the loudest. It's the one who doesn't need to speak at all. The one whose name alone carries weight. The one whose presence commands silence. So stop trying to prove yourself. Stop begging for recognition. Instead, make them wonder. Make them hesitate. Make them fear what happens if they ever make the mistake of underestimating you. And now we sharpen the blade. You want respect? You want them to see you? Then stop asking and start becoming, because the world doesn't respect words. It respects undeniability. And that, my dear friend, comes from ruthless self-improvement. They will never respect a man who blends into the background. They will never acknowledge the one who waits to be noticed. No. They respect the one who forces his way into their minds. The one whose presence lingers long after he's gone. The one who becomes so damn good at what he does that ignoring him is no longer an option. You must evolve relentlessly. Build your mind until it's a weapon sharper than any blade. Strengthen your skills until they make others feel small in comparison. Gain knowledge, influence, power, until the very idea of not respecting you becomes laughable. Because respect isn't about what you say, it's about what they see when they look at you. And when they see you, they should see a force they cannot deny. A storm, a reckoning, a presence so unshakable, so undeniable, so damn formidable that their only option is to bow, whether they like it or not. Pain, oh, sweet unforgiving pain. You think respect is free, that it just appears because you want it? No. Respect has a price, and that price? Suffering. Sacrifice, blood. You want them to bow, then you must break first. You must walk through fire until your flesh peels, until your bones ache, until your soul itself begs for relief. And even then, you keep going, because the weak stop when it hurts. The strong embrace the agony. They pay the price willingly. Look around you. The ones they fear, the ones they admire, the ones who command the room without saying a word, they all bled for it. They all suffered in silence while others laughed, while others doubted, while others lived in comfort. But now those same people look up at them with awe. with fear, with respect, because hardship is not a curse. It is a forging, a brutal, merciless process that remakes you into something they cannot ignore, something they cannot defy. And if you are too soft, too afraid, too unwilling to endure the fire, then step aside, because respect is not given, it is seized. So tell me, are you willing to suffer for it? To let pain mold you into something worthy of their fear? Or will you crumble like all the others who wanted respect, but never had the spine to earn it? They watch you, waiting, hoping, not for your success, no, but for your reaction. They want to see you beg, to see you lash out, to see you crumble under the weight of their words. It's a game to them. Push you, mock you, deny you, just to see if you'll break, just to see if they matter enough to shake you. But here's the secret. Indifference is the silent killer. It is the knife that slides between their ribs without a sound. Nothing unnerves people more than a man who doesn't flinch. A man who doesn't seek their approval, who doesn't need their validation, who looks them dead in the eyes and feels nothing. They want your emotions, your frustration, your anger, but when you give them nothing, that is when the fear sets in, because now they can't tell if they've won. They can't tell if you even care, and that drives them insane. Silence commands more respect than 1,000 words ever could. A cold stare, a slow smirk, a refusal to acknowledge their existence. It turns the tables. Now they are the ones seeking your attention. Now they are the ones desperate for a reaction. And the more you withhold it, the weaker they become. This is how you win, not by shouting, not by pleading, but by making them feel invisible, by making them desperate for your attention while you remain untouchable. Let them scream, let them hate, let them drown in their own insignificance. And you walk away, unshaken, unbothered, unbreakable. The moment it clicks, the moment they realize they can't look at you the same way anymore. It's subtle at first, just a flicker, a hesitation, a second too long before they speak. They used to mock you, dismiss you, treat you like nothing. But now their voices waver. Now their smiles are forced. Now their laughs come with a hint of nervousness. Oh, you'll see it in their eyes, that quiet recognition, that unspoken truth. They don't want to respect you. They don't want to admit they were wrong. But it's no longer up to them. Power bends the weak. Dominance forces submission, and whether they love you, hate you, or curse your name under their breath, their behavior must change. Watch them start to choose their words more carefully. Watch them nod when they used to argue. Watch them step aside when they used to stand in your way. They bow without even realizing it, because when you hold power, it stops being a choice. It becomes a matter of survival. And let them resent you. Let them envy you. Let them burn with hatred behind fake grins and polite handshakes. That hatred, that's their frustration, their regret, their realization that they can never treat you like they did before, that they lost control. Because in the end, it doesn't matter if they like you. It doesn't matter if they despise you. What matters is that they respect you. And respect is a cage, a chain around their necks, forcing them to acknowledge what they tried so hard to ignore. So let them glare, Let them whisper, let them seethe. It doesn't change the fact that when you walk into the room, they bow. Look at yourself. Really look. Do you see it? The shift, the fire in your eyes, the weight in your presence? You are no longer the fool they dismissed, the shadow they ignored, the name they forgot. You are something else now, something they don't know how to handle. And that unsettles them. They don't laugh the same way anymore, do they? Their jokes don't land as hard. Their insults don't cut as deep. Because they feel it, that change, that quiet, suffocating realization that the person they once toyed with doesn't exist anymore. You don't demand respect. You breathe it. You walk into a room and suddenly their voices drop. Their movements stiffen. They choose their words more carefully, not because they like you, not because they want to, but because their instincts scream at them to do so. And it burns them, doesn't it? Oh, how it eats away at them. They hate that they can't break you, hate that they can't shake you, hate that despite all their efforts you now stand above them. They tried to keep you small, and now they live in the shadow of what you've become. You were never meant to beg for their approval. You were meant to force them to acknowledge you, not through words, not through empty pleas, but through undeniable, unstoppable presence. Respect isn't given. It's taken, ripped from their hands and burned into their minds. They may never love you, they may never cheer for you, sing your praises, or welcome you with open arms. But they will feel your absence like a blade against their throat. They will fear the silence you leave behind. They will dread the day you walk away, because suddenly everything feels weaker without you. And that is power.